Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And Andy Weyrich's coming on the show today.
Yes, Dr. Andy Weyrich, who's the new boss at the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation, president of the foundation, has kindly come from Utah down to our show. Didn't have any other reason to come except just to be on our show. But he's going to visit with us about his life, his family, what expectations and hopes he has for the Medical Research Foundation.
Officially takes over on January 1, but we'll get a head start and start talking to Dr. Weyrich about what to expect from OMRF. It's coming up today on The Verdict, and we'll be right back.
Right now, 6 feet can feel like a long ways away. But from 6 feet, we can still smile at each other. From our doorways and our stairways, from opposite sides of the street and opposite sides of the country. Through fear and frustrations, we can remind each other that we are still here for each other. Because we can still smile at each other. And we're not going anywhere.
Military service ran in my blood, starting from my father, which joined the Navy, on the Chickasaw side, my uncle, which served in the United States Army. I'm Benjamin Espinosa, Chief Petty Officer, United States Navy, and I'm Chickasaw. I went to the Secretary of Defense's staff at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., which ultimately led to becoming a combat support technician for Naval Special Warfare, specifically SEAL Team 10. I think to be proud and to love your tribe, to love being Chickasaw, you also have to love being American. You also have to love everything that America stands for: equality, perseverance, professionalism, and power. I want my family to know that their father is a good person, but also feels that he has an obligation to the country and to love this nation. Anything worth having is worth dying for. The military and the country owes me nothing. I owe it everything.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Well, as we talked about in the open, our guest today is Dr. Andy Weyrich, who is starting the first of the year, the new president of the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation. Andy did his undergraduate work at Baldwin-Wallace College, did his graduate work at Wake Forest, got his PhD at Thomas Jefferson, all in the Northeast. He is now, before the first of this year, the Vice President for Research and President of the University of Utah Research Foundation. He's been at the University of Utah for 28 years, and we stole him. We got him. We went after him. Somebody at the OMRF went after him and was successful. And he and his family are in the process of getting settled down here now, and will be taking over at the foundation the first of the year. You're a prolific writer. I've looked at the pages of the resume. I don't know how many articles are on there, but there's an awful lot of scientific writing. And we're really pleased to have you on The Verdict. Welcome to Oklahoma.
Thank you. It's so great to be here and be able to come to this phenomenal state. We are very excited, my family and I, so can't wait to get here. In fact, January 4th can't come soon enough.
We should probably note up front, your predecessor, Dr. Stephen Prescott, passed away just a few months back, which opened the position that you were able to apply for and be chosen for. But I know you knew Dr. Prescott.
Yeah, so Steve, in 1993, Steve recruited me to the University of Utah to do kind of cardiovascular research. And so I was a fellow at the time. And so Steve was my mentor. And then over the years, Steve became my colleague and friend, and we published together up until the time he came to OMRF. And so even after that, we've stayed in great contact. We're close friends with his wife, Susan, and their kids, who we know well, John and Allison. And my family is just so excited. We'll never be able to fill the shoes of Steve, but it just felt like a good fit.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say it. And we are just so excited to have known Steve, but to continue on his legacy.
From an outsider's perspective, it seems like OMRF's been doing pretty well. What's your take?
Yeah, so that's one of the major things that attracted us here, is that you didn't have to come and build something up from scratch. You really needed to come to amplify. And OMRF is phenomenal for biomedical research and the things they do for the community to advance human health, to make discoveries, to diagnose disease, cure disease, treat disease, is phenomenal. And I say the other thing that's so attractive is that it's community. And so it's not just the foundation itself, it's the community is invested in OMRF. And that is really, really attractive thing to come to. So it's really exciting. I'm here now kind of working with folks, just developing strategy. And I would say that the nice thing is it's strategy on how we get better, how we get more involved in the community, what we can do for that, the community, and then to advance health. So it's a great situation to come to be honest.
Talk about the facilities at OMRF. Was it a good surprise, a bad surprise? Do we have to tear it down and start all over? What are the facilities like?
The facilities are fantastic. State-of-the-art research facilities, offices, they've come in. I think the new building, when Steve was here, was constructed, I believe, in 2011. It gives us a phenomenal opportunity to attract world-class scientists because the space is so outstanding. It's contiguous. And so our investigators who are studying aging and metabolism can study around one another. We have 2 clinics there that we work on with multiple sclerosis and autoimmune disease. And so those clinics are right there too. So we have that bench to bedside capacity where we can actually work with patients, kind of get research, and then actually go and look at the fundamental pieces of that in there. So it's super great, and it's also really well located. The city of Oklahoma is fantastic, one of the major attractions we've had. I believe maybe you were involved in some of the MAPS program, but I would say I was down this morning running, and I'm going through Scissortail Park down to the river, to the Boathouse District, back up to Bricktown, and then you can actually get right over to OMRF. Everything is located beautifully. The streets are wide and handicap accessible, and my son, who has special needs and is in a wheelchair, I mean, that's really, really important to us. And so I think that that's a big thing for OMRF going forward is we'll be able to sell the city with OMRF as we attract people. So world-class facilities there at OMRF, but also what I think is one of the most upcoming cities around. I mean, Oklahoma City is really cool. I don't know how else to say it.
How are organizations like OMRF measured against each other? What are the measuring sticks that a person like you from the outside might look in and see, well, this organization has been able to accomplish this, or they have this status?
Yeah.
How does all that work?
Well, there's a lot of different things that you can that are measurables that people have. One thing I always think about is impact, and so OMRF has had some discoveries that are therapeutics that now have hit the clinic in sickle cell disease and protein C deficiency, and so I think that's one of those things. It's a tangible thing you can't really measure except to say, hey, we're treating patients now with things that we were working on 20 or 30 years ago. I was working on with Dr. McKeever. Actually, we were a little bit too. And so those things, as you see the fruition and the maturity of them, that's one thing that you have. There's also measurables. National Institutes of Health funding, which we are very good at here, is something that you can stack up. Almost all of our investigators have funding like that, and it's peer reviewed. And so what that means is that it goes up against a peer review. People look at it, and they measure it, and they only give you dollars if it's actually really, really cutting edge research. And OMRF has a ton of that, which is really exciting. And so that's kind of some of the measurements that you have that you can kind of put up there, and then you decide that. But all of those were, how do you say it, A+. So when you're looking and you're thinking about the job, it's a lot easier to go into something like that than when we don't have any National Institutes of Health funding. And it's a great economic contributor too. One thing people lose sight of is there's not only the discovery piece, but every time you bring in huge research dollars, you're creating jobs and you're putting money back into the economy. And so it's one of those great things for Oklahoma in addition to the discoveries that are made.
Let me harken back to something you said a few minutes ago. You were running this morning through the city?
I was.
Well, when you're out on one of your runs, look for Mick Cornett Boulevard. It's down there somewhere.
I will look for that.
Yeah,
it was a great run through the city this morning. I have pictures, I'll show them to you, of the sunrise over the Scissortail Park.
We
and then
saw that.
The reflections on the water.
Oh, yeah.
Spectacular. And they
You
were
must be
crewing.
quite a runner, though, because the research park, it's over a mile all the way down to the river. So, I mean,
Yeah.
you were out on a good distance run.
Yeah, so my wife and I, we met in North Carolina at Wake Forest. Amy, who you all will get to meet soon, she'll be out here. And we were exercise physiologists, and so we've always felt really strongly in kind of preventive medicine and exercise, and so we were both runners and exercise folks, and and it's also a time for reflection. You can really think about what's upcoming that day. I'm very imaginative and strategic, and so those are times where I can kind of get lost in that and say, hey, what can we do to make things better? And you might imagine that a lot of OMRF in the Oklahoma community is on my mind these days.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look, just in a minute we have before we take our first break, how's your family looking forward to the trip? I guess they've been down here.
Yes, so it's great. So I have 2 kids, and so my wife is Amy, who I met. We just talked about. We have 2 children. My daughter Sarah is 23, and she's in Chicago studying musical theater. And our son is 21, Samuel, and he has a very rare disease. It's a leukodystrophy, similar to multiple sclerosis, but in a child. But he's beaten all the odds, and so he was a miracle to turn 21. He was with us last time, and when we went into this house, he went crazy. He got vocal and very, very touching, and you could tell that he wanted us to find a place, and he found a house that we got. And so we're really, really excited. The family is very, very excited to move here.
Dr. Andrew Weyrich, the incoming, is it chair, president,
I think-
CEO?
Well, they call me something, but I think it's president.
President
That's what I'd written down, was president.
of Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation. Well, more with him when we get back.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative. And this year, our competition teams rank number 2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
We want to reach out to every veteran we can in Oklahoma. There's somewhere around 340,000 veterans here in Oklahoma, and half of those are still unaware of the benefits or don't know how to go about getting them.
We help guide the veterans through the VA system. It's a giant maze, and we kind of help guide them through that maze. So our job is to try to help the veterans get everything that they're legally entitled to. There's just a special place in my heart for our Vietnam veterans and our World War II veterans, as well as any veteran, and that's why I do the job.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers, and our guest is Dr. Andrew Weyrich, the incoming president of OMRF.
Yes. Andy, what goals do you personally have for OMRF?
Yeah, so two major goals. I think we want to, there's the scientific piece of discovery, right? So we want to continue to be excellent in an area, recruit more people who are excellent, and build that. So obviously, the idea there is for us to make discoveries that are going to have impact on human health. And I think we said it before, diagnose disease, treat disease, cure disease. And so that's what we really set out to do. The second piece was one of the major things that attracted me here was the community. I feel like it's a community partnership, and it's OMRF's responsibility to be in the community to tell everybody about the research, but also listen from the community on what they need. So I think those are kind of the two aspects. Out of the gate, I'll be working closely with the scientists at OMRF to kind of build our strategic vision over the next year. But I'll be in the community a lot, building trust relationships, learning what they need from OMRF and what we can do better.
And OMRF, of course, is not the only institution in America doing this sort of work. So to a certain extent, there's a competition, is there not? For projects, for doctors, for researchers?
Yeah, there's, as you can imagine, there's other foundations like this. There's multiple places of higher education that are all competing for some of the same dollars, especially in the National Institutes of Health, but also some of the foundation funding and the state things. And so we have to be excellent to compete. But competition's fun. You know, I'm a baseball guy back in the day playing in college, and you know, there's nothing like a great competition to bring out the best in people. And so I think that our scientists and their teams and our community are behind that, so that we're all successful.
Is that the biggest challenge out there for OMRF, or are there others?
Yeah, I think I say that was probably the biggest challenge. It would be for us to continue to do that. I think one thing we always have to do is we have to think about succession, and so we have our investigators and then nurturing the next generation. So that's what we're doing right now. And so that's one of our big challenges, and we're developing some strategy. I was here today talking about how we can attract the brightest young folks that will be competitive going forward. And so, you know, my goal in many ways is similar to what Steve has left to me, is to actually really kind of amplify the foundation so that, you know, the next person will actually come into another great situation, and, you know, Oklahoma will get another phenomenal person to lead that. And so that's a huge thing, and you want to make sure, kind of want to make sure I don't mess it up.
I think most young people, if asked about what they would like to do with their life, they would like to say, I'd like to do something that could change the world, could make the world better for everyone. You offer those kinds of opportunities through your researchers, do you not?
Oh, yeah. We have great programs for people to come in the summer from all over the United States to get experiences from the greater Oklahoma community. People can come in and learn how to do research, to learn just a little bit more about why we do it, but also train the next generation of researchers. And so it's really well suited for that. In fact, that's one of our major missions. It's our responsibility. And so I think all of us are really value that at the foundation.
We all know that there's great economic development benefit from OMRF. How easy or how difficult is it to connect the dots, though, between turning great research into a great business that might benefit Oklahoma in other ways?
Well, it's amazing. So, you know, at the University of Utah, I was in addition to being the vice president for research, I was the president of our research foundation, which is the Economic Innovation District. And it was great because it attracted new businesses and things like that and jobs. And I think here with the new Innovation District, some of the things that are being discussed is we have the opportunity at OMRF, partnering with our institutions, you know, Oklahoma State and Oklahoma and others, to actually seed that innovation. And then it leads to jobs. And things like that, and certainly it's a multiplier on the economic side, and it's pretty cool actually how that works, and so it's pretty fun to watch.
If you could describe just briefly for our viewers how that partnership does work between OMRF, OU, and OSU.
Yeah, so I'm learning. Right, and so, but you know, the one thing that I've always had in science is collaborations, and in my own research, I collaborate from people, you know, in Utah, and now I'll be in Oklahoma, but from different states. I think people, what they do is they find like areas. I was just talking to one of our program chairs, and working in the aging metabolism space, reaching over into OU HSC, and collaborating with folks there. And they have a seminar series on Friday afternoons where they get together and they develop these relationships. These relationships then develop into grants, and then they develop into partnerships, and they develop into training programs, and then ultimately discoveries that advance stuff. And hopefully in my case, slow down the aging process, right?
Well,
So
I can subscribe to that.
Yeah, so I think that's how those things work, and they work really naturally because everybody's on the same page. Everybody has the same goal.
You've had a chance to look over Oklahoma City's Innovation District, and you've had a chance to see others all over the country. What are the opportunities at Oklahoma City's Innovation District, and what amenities would you like to see added that might help you be more competitive for OMRF?
Yeah, so one of the things I think that is a major advantage, well, two things, is that Oklahoma City, a lot of the things that have been done, it's super, super attractive. And then I think it's affordable. And so therefore it allows us to attract businesses and people coming from the outside. And then I think one of the things that I've noticed when I was at the University of Utah, having some geographical space where kind of these groups can kind of come together and congregate. Venture funds happen, and then people can do follow-on funding because they're naturally talking to one another with like interest, I think is a really important thing. So I think those are opportunities that OKC has.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about any relatively new victories in the research area that have come out of OMRF?
Yeah, so I mentioned a couple. The major victory is the new therapeutic we have in sickle cell disease, which is really new, and it continues to increase. I think trust with the community. I think Dr. Prescott, and during this time in COVID, that can be just confusing for people who have immunosuppression come in and they have questions. I think OMRF has been a great place to do that. And then, of course, we have so many projects going on, and you name it, from cardiovascular disease to cancer. We just got an autoimmune excellence, and so we have all of these great things that are just continuing. We've had major awards that have just happened in these areas. So a lot of great stuff, actually. And I can go on and on and on.
Well, what can the general public that might be watching this show and maybe learning about OMRF, what do they need to know, and how could they help you be successful as you and your family move here?
Yeah. Well, so two things. I mean, one of the major things that attracted me was reading on the history and almost 75 years ago, where everybody came together from across Oklahoma to invest in this foundation. And that is something that everybody does now, I think. And there's a lot of different ways that people can do that. But it's not just like one big donor. It's a whole bunch of people coming with a common cause. And so as we go into our 75th year anniversary, that's huge. I think the other thing is to flip it. What can OMRF do for the community? And so what I'm going to be doing and our team is getting out into the community and listening to them and saying, what can we do going in the other direction too? So I want it to be a reciprocal relationship that is additive and synergistic and takes us all to these common goals that we have, which is to advance human health, because we all believe in that.
All right. Hey, Dr. Weyrich, thanks so much for coming on The Verdict.
Thank you. I can't wait to be here officially in January, and my family can't wait to meet everybody, and we look forward to meeting all of the Oklahoma community and being on this show again. I hope you invite me again.
You have an open invitation anytime you want to come back.
Dr. Andrew Weyrich is the incoming president at OMRF. He officially takes over January 1st, but came in a few weeks early to help us out here on The Verdict. Thanks so much, and Kent and I'll have a final word when we return.
It used to be okay in teachers' lounges. It used to be okay in maternity wards. It was okay in sporting arenas, college campuses, and office spaces. But now that we understand the deadly dangers of secondhand smoke, that's not okay anymore. So why is it okay that thousands of employees are exposed to it every day at work? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's protect hardworking Oklahomans. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
You know, Steve Prescott was a friend of both of ours. The former president
Yes.
at OMRF passed away, but it looks like they found an able-bodied replacement here in Andy Weyrich.
I'm really excited about Andy coming down and taking over the OMRF reins. Yeah, Steve was on our show a couple of times as a guest. He was wonderful. Sorry about his passing, but I know Andy will carry the torch and will advance even further, leading OMRF.
And
It's in good hands.
I'm glad he brought up to the economic development aspect of it, because it really is an important part of Oklahoma City's diversification, you know, that started 30 years ago.
Yeah.
These are, as he mentioned, higher paying jobs, and they're right here in our communities. A couple of websites. Let's see. First of all, we have omrf.org. You can find more information about Andy's organization. And we have a website, theverdict.tv. For Kent, I'm Mick. We'll see you next week right here on The Verdict.